All right, welcome to MMA Al Dente. I'm the guy that called Mickey Gall's first knockout over Mike Malott. Don't you forget that. I'm a fucking idiot. What do you want from me? All right, I'm here to talk about Chimaev versus Burns. Fight of the night. One of the fights of the year, I'm sure, at the end of it. It was fucking amazing. Gilbert Burns got over, as they say in pro wrestling. He really, his stock rose tonight, as did Chimaev's. Although, to be honest, I think Chimaev disappointed a lot of people because the hype was so great. But if you look at this for what it was, Chimaev did something exceptional last night. I mean, he took out the #2 guy. Doesn't matter how you did that, by disqualification or whatever. He got it done. And he got it done legitimately. And when I say legitimately, I mean controversially, kind of. I don't know. Maybe not. It was a very close fight. I scored it for Burns last night, but I was emotional and excited. I rewatched it this morning, and I scored it for Chimaev. It all comes down to round 3. But whatever. Seems like most people scored it for Chimaev. Doesn't matter. It was a fair decision. Wasn't going to be a robbery either way. And I thought both guys really fought their asses off. And I knew Burns could fight his ass off. I didn't know Chimaev could. You know, it's one thing to dominate somebody for 3 rounds, but it's another thing to get your ass kicked and still win that fight. And they both got their asses kicked. Chimaev showed he could take his ass kicking. This was one of those moments where it came earlier than it did for like somebody like John Jones. Although John Jones had some adversity early on in his UFC career. He lost the 2nd round to Stephan Bonner, whatever. But Chimaev here, he had his toughest test. His career could end. This will still be one of his toughest tests. This was a fucking war and a half, and Gilbert Burns did not stop. He did not stop. I thought Chimaev was taking over the fight in the early part of the 3rd round, and Gilbert Burns kept on throwing at the end, the last minute of the fight. That's what made me think he stalled the 3rd round, was his output. And he just spammed like 4 big overhand rights and landed like 3 of them. He was really fighting to the bitter end. And Chimaev, man, you can't dismiss this guy's cardio, his heart, tenacity, all that shit we saw last night. You know, it's like I used to say that about any undefeated fighter. John Jones, Chris Weidman, whoever. We have to see what they look like when they're put to the test. And he was put to the test, Chimaev. He passed with flying colors. Now, I know some people are going to say he was exposed. You know, if he had a tooth-and-nail battle with Gilbert Burns, how is he going to fare against Usman or Colby? And what I think about that is they're 2 totally different matchups. I think the opportunities that Chimaev had against that Chimaev has against Usman and Colby, both of them, he didn't have that option against Gilbert Burns, even though I bet on him having that option. And that option was to dominate him from the top, from the back, you know, just essentially jiu-jitsu. That's what he had taken from him in this fight with Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is an elite jiu-jitsu player. He scrambled early on after Chimaev. I think Chimaev had his back, definitely took him down. And, yeah, he had his back, and Gilbert Burns rolled for a knee bar to escape, got his guard back, and that was it for the ground game. Chimaev had no intention of grappling with him. I'm not sure if he did from the beginning or if he felt something in that moment and said, fuck, this guy's tough to control down here. I don't want to burn the energy. But my point is, I could see him having that advantage over Usman and Colby in particular. And having the opportunity for a 1st-round submission will be there, where it wasn't for Gilbert Burns. Kamaru Usman, even though he's improved drastically since that loss of his on the regional circuit to Jose Caceres, that was via standing rear naked choke. Colby Covington, he's been defeated by Kamaru and a guillotine to Warley Alves years back. And Colby, like, I don't know, I think Colby is a very easy matchup for Chimaev. You know, I think Colby definitely has striking that can give him problems and whatever, and wrestling I'm sure too, but Chimaev's got more that can give Colby problems, and Colby is not as indomitable as Kamaru Usman is. It's tough to dominate Kamaru Usman and wrangle him, to be blunt. Colby can be wrangled, taken down and controlled. He can. And I just see favorability for Chimaev in both of those matchups where, even though I saw it last night, before last night against Gilbert Burns, I kind of knew there's a chance Gilbert Burns' jiu-jitsu is just, it's going to be too good. It's going to nullify any of that submission prowess that Chimaev has in just about every other matchup. But anyway, Chimaev, regardless of how he's going to fare against Colby or Usman, if he's lucky enough to get that fight, he showed that he's an elite welterweight by beating the #2 guy last night. He beat him. The first round I actually thought was going Gilbert Burns' way, but Chimaev dropped him with that right jab. That's something I noticed with Chimaev. I think the commentators called it, but he's good at throwing. He's got a good right jab. He switches stances. When he's southpaw, he fights longer. When he's orthodox, he throws hooks and he's trying to kill you. I think he's much more measured fighting from southpaw, not only with jabs and range attacks, but I think that's where he does his best takedown work too. That might be his takedown stance, and he's definitely got some holes in his game. He was tagged. He was dropped, I think, twice. I rewatched the fight. I still don't know. I think it was twice he was dropped. One of them could have been momentous, where he just, the momentum knocked him down or whatever the fuck. But either way, even though my prediction failed and I thought he was going to run through Gilbert Burns, that's what I bet on, I was still very impressed with what I saw last night. And in a lot of ways, I'm more impressed than I would have been if he ran through Gilbert Burns. I'm so glad we got to see this guy tested. And he got dropped. He was absolutely rocked and hurt. And at some points, I'm sure, a little discouraged and whatever the fuck comes with a fight. And he handled it all very well. He was still there round 3, trying his ass off. I thought, like I said, Gilbert Burns was the better man in the last minute of that fight. But the last 5 minutes of that fight, I could see it going both ways. And this morning, I scored it for Chimaev. He did a lot of great work early in that round. But anyway, regardless of how you scored the fight, I'm sure you enjoyed it. That was a fucking amazing experience. It really was. The crowd was so into it. I was so into it. I was, shaking at the beginning of that fight. I'm not invested emotionally in either one of these fighters, but I was shaking. It's just, it was quite a scene. That was fucking awesome. It's like, I don't know, sometimes just an MMA fight. For me, they're all bigger than the Super Bowl, but sometimes it just captures everybody's interest. And this one was the people's main event coming into this fight, and it delivered and then some. It's an all-time classic. I'm not sure about Hall of Fame worthy. They were throwing that around. But, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. That fucking... I watched it twice in the last, 7 hours. These guys both got over, so to speak. Gilbert Burns isn't going anywhere now. His stock has only risen. But he may be a little, he's farther removed from a title shot, of course. But it doesn't matter. Gilbert Burns, he's got a lot more fans and a lot more promise, a lot more of a future. He's got a lot more money coming his way after that performance last night. So I don't know where he goes from here. He can headline a fight night event or just be some reliable co-main fighting anybody, even on a pay-per-view. He's like a star now. And Chimaev, even though I feel like he disappointed a lot of people that were blowing him, myself included, he didn't disappoint anybody in reality. For a guy with 4 fights to defeat, or whatever he's got altogether, but 4 UFC fights to defeat the second best or third best welterweight in the world under any circumstances, that's incredible. So Chimaev, I think he's going to fight Colby Covington next, if Colby Covington wants to. And that's one thing too, whereas before everybody was afraid to fight him, or at least it seemed that way, I don't think everybody's afraid of him now. I think they can expose different things in his game and maybe even just get the better of him in general, because they saw what Gilbert Burns did to him last night. And look, it's not like Gilbert Burns is some run-of-the-mill welterweight. As I said, he's the number 2 guy. You already know that. But he's a, he's not the best welterweight. I think even, when I say guys are looking at him like, oh, I could take him, I'm not talking about, middle-of-the-pack Li Jingliang types and whatever. I'm talking about Colby and Usman, essentially. Maybe Leon Edwards, even though Leon's not the, he doesn't have the strongest wrestling base to begin with. But these guys are all top fighters, and Chimaev's coming for all of them. I don't see him taking a backward step here. It's going to be a title fight within 2 fights. Within 2 fights. It means it could be his next one.